Thank you everyone for joining the Research and Innovation Conference. The first presentation will be Better Together Physician Coaching, an innovative solution to trainee burnout. And we have two speakers for this. The first is Tyra Fanstead, who's a visiting associate professor of medicine in the Division of General Internal Medicine. Dr. Fanstead was a graduate of the University of Colorado School of Medicine, and then did her internal medicine residency and chief residency at University of Washington. And our second speaker is Dr. Adrienne Mann. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Medicine in the Division of Hospital Medicine. She's also the associate program director for our internal medicine residency program. And Dr. Mann did her medical education at University of Colorado School of Medicine and did her residency and chief residency here as well. So I'm really excited to hear this talk today. And with that, I'll let you get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. So hi, everybody. I see so many familiar names in the room. Thank you for being here. I'm Adrienne Mann. Like Dr. Ho said, clinically, I'm a hospitalist at the VA. And the majority of my non-clinical work right now is in mentoring of residents in the internal medicine residency program and in coaching. And I came to coaching through my own struggles with burnout as early faculty, and with funding through the PACE program through the Department of Medicine, and in partnership with Dr. Fanstead, have built this program Better Together, which we're going to tell you about today.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tyra Fanstead. I was in Seattle after my residency there for about a decade and moved back here during the pandemic in 2020. And so I'm just meeting people mostly through Zoom. I am a primary care doctor over at the Lowry Clinic. I'm also the resident clinic director here, and did the same life coaching certification program that Adrienne did, came to it in a similar way. And when I moved back here, we realized that our interests and goals were so aligned that we decided to join forces. So we're life coaches. This is not your usual presentation for research and innovation through the Department of Innovation, but we are here to tell you why it should be. Life coaching, when we say coaching, I just want to be clear that we are using the word coaching very differently than most people hear about it in medical education. Most of the time in med ed, when we say the term coach or to coach a learner, we're really meaning really good teaching, right? When Adrienne and I talk about coaching, we are not doing any teaching. It's not didactic at all. It's not directive at all. It's also not mentoring or advising, in that as a coach, we do not have a specific agenda for the coachee. So life coaching is basically an inquiry-based guide towards metacognition, where the coach is helping the coachee look at their brain in a non-judgmental space. The model that we use came from the Life Coach School, which is where we were both certified, and it's heavily based in cognitive behavioral therapy, a little bit of acceptance and commitment therapy. It differs from therapy. We are not therapists, and that we don't diagnose or treat anyone with mental health conditions. Coaching is generally used for people who are doing okay and kind of want to go from okay to great. So I really just want to make that distinction. Coaching is relatively new in medicine and even newer in medical education, but it's got some promising data. There was a randomized control trial a couple of years ago for faculty coaching from now our own Dr. Derby, but she was at the Mayo Clinic then. And it's really effective for things like physician burnout, moral injury, all sort of facets of well-being that we sort of get stuck in, because it works with and identifies the culture that is becoming more and more toxic, especially with the pandemic. Also, please stay tuned. Our own randomized control trial will be published tomorrow. We can't tell you where yet, but keep your eyes open.
Okay, so the program that Tyra and I built is a 6-month web-based group coaching program for women residents here at CU. Through our program, the participants can access coaching with either Tyra or I in 3 different ways. The first is on Zoom calls that happen on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7 p.m. So after sign out, after everybody's made it home, or perhaps they're on a swing shift or on nights and they can tune in from work. On the Zoom call, folks raise their hand, they come up and get coached on any topic under the sun. They can say, I got a piece of feedback that didn't look good, or I'm not sure what fellowship I'm going to apply to, and we'll coach them in front of a group. It's webinar based just like this. So they come up as a panelist and then go back down after their coaching happens, usually about 15-minute sessions. The second prong is self-study. Over the course of 6 months, every week has a different topic, and there are worksheets and videos that are posted on our website that they can work through at their own pace. And then the third prong is written coaching, which is anonymous and happens on our secure members only website, where participants can write in about anything that they're going through. And we respond back to the forum where everybody can read with some prompts to help them think about their thinking around that issue. These are the themes that we cover over the 6 months. And within each of these months, there's weekly content. We cover goals, values, purpose, entering a growth mindset, what to do about imposter syndrome and approval addiction, how to build confidence, manage transitions, and launch into the new versions of themselves. To study this, we did a randomized control trial here at CU of 101 women CU trainees with a primary aim to decrease burnout, as defined by the Maslow Burnout Inventory, and with secondary aims of increasing self-compassion and decreasing imposter syndrome and moral injury.
Yeah, we actually initially thought we were only going to do a very small exploratory pilot, maybe 10 or 20 residents. And we sent out recruitment emails in the fall of 2020 and just got flooded with responses. So we switched study designs and decided to do a randomized control trial. We cut ourselves off at 100 since we weren't quite sure how many the program could support. And we definitely didn't want to under-deliver with coaching. So we cut off at 100. And what you're looking at here is the baseline data of all, it was 101, one extra one snuck in somehow, of all 101 women residents across specialties here at CU. This was in about December of 2020. So right in the thick of the pandemic, winter months. You can see the results on the top right there. They are burnt out. They're not happy. They have no self-compassion. It's a pretty bleak scene for residents. Our baseline data is slightly worse than we were expecting, given our literature review and resident wellness indices across the country. But of course, it was during COVID, and perhaps there was a selection bias for people that volunteered into this program, although other research would say that it's not necessarily the people that need it the most that end up volunteering in. So the next slide is our study design. And like we said, in September, we sort of created the program, and then we ended up recruiting women through emails. We cut ourselves off at 101. In November, December, we pre-surveyed everyone, which is the results that you just saw. And then after everyone took that survey is when they got randomized to either an intervention or a control group. In the intervention group, which took place from January through June of 2021, we delivered the coaching program that Adrienne just explained to you. Everything about it was opt-in, nothing was necessary. We did not monitor engagement, mostly because we weren't funded to, but also because since Adrienne and I are both teaching faculty here, we didn't want our participants to feel that they were being judged or graded or persuaded even to engage with us in any way. So we didn't look at it. They had an option of engaging with the program however much or however little they wanted, and some of them didn't touch it at all. That's what the intervention was. Then in June, we post-surveyed everyone, looked at scores between the two groups, and in July through December of 2021, we offered the coaching program to our control group. So everyone got coaching if they wanted it. We used this sort of staggered design so that we could do an actual randomized control trial in the first 6 months. And here are our results that will be published tomorrow. The top 3 boxes are the 3 facets of the Maslow Burnout Inventory. Emotional exhaustion is the one we were most excited about because that's the one that is most linked to detrimental physician outcomes like anxiety, depression, retention, even suicidal ideation. So if we were going to reach significance in any one of these, we are thrilled that that's the one we found it in. The two bottom boxes are two of our secondary outcomes that we reached significance in. We improved self-compassion and had a lucky curative reduction in imposter syndrome. The only other thing I want to mention here is that we were lucky enough to have a statistician working with us who did a power analysis before we started this and helpfully advised us that we were very, very underpowered to find a result in our resident group. Looking at prior wellness intervention RCTs in this population, it appears that you need an N of 500 to 600 before you even can move the Maslow burnout inventory by a score of 1, basically just saying it's really hard to help burnt out residents. So we said, okay, well, we only have 100. We'll try it anyways, and it'll just sort of be a proof of concept study. So when these results came back, we were very excited. What that tells us is we have a really impactful program.
Yeah. So to understand why our program worked as well as it did, we did a qualitative study, which included 60-minute interviews with participants from the initial intervention group of Better Together. So of the 50 women in the intervention group, 17 responded to the invitation to complete a survey. And those 17 people represented 7 specialties from the program. On average, they were 25 to 32 years old, usually PGY 2 to 3.5, white cis females, and were heterosexual. The 3 predominant themes that emerged from our qualitative data were that our participants really appreciated learning the metacognitive tool that we teach and applied it as a tool for healthy coping as it pertains to a lot of different domains, both in training and personal life. They appreciated the sense of community that they got being part of this group. And they also appreciated the customizable experiences that they could generate depending on which ways they wanted to participate in the program. The particular ways they said they applied the metacognitive tool were in domains of burnout, self-compassion, relationships, and in perfectionism and imposter syndrome. The majority of participants said that they joined Better Together because they wanted to address burnout that either they had been through in the past or they felt themselves creeping towards. So that was the primary one of these subdomains, but all of these were areas that the trainees felt that they could apply a new skill. So I'll give you a second to read this quote. So in this example, this participant is saying, I thought that feedback was bad. Like anybody saying that I could do better meant that I was doing awful. But in fact, they're just trying to teach me. And isn't that just the point of residency?
Yeah, another theme that actually we were pretty surprised by was that came out of the interviews, sort of not prompted by us, was this sense of community that the residents felt being in this group coaching program. A group coaching program is a pretty rare thing to be studied in the literature. And we had concerns about what that would mean. So in group coaching, you come on Zoom like this, as Adrian said, with a whole bunch of your colleagues and get coached on pretty vulnerable questions together. And that's a big ask. And so we were nervous that maybe they wouldn't want to reveal their vulnerabilities in front of everyone. That's not something we typically do in medicine. And we were also nervous that we were offering it on a Zoom platform. And how are we going to create a sense of community during a pandemic when everyone has so much Zoom fatigue? But actually, this was one of the huge strengths of our program. And I think why what we have is so scalable and also maybe more impactful than one-on-one coaching studies that have been looked at before. When you're up getting coached about something you feel shame around in front of your colleagues, you're not only getting the direct coaching back and giving the gift of your colleagues listening to that direct coaching, you're normalizing it for everyone. And that concept came up again and again in our interviews, just like this one here. You can go ahead, Adrian. I bet they've read it.
Oh, okay, it's long. I'm just looking at that and thinking it's not just residents who think these thoughts. I'm sure many of us still do. Okay, the final theme that emerged from our qualitative interviews was around the idea that this experience was customizable for them. So again, like Tyra said, we weren't taking attendance, nothing was required. They can engage in the calls live, or they were recorded and they could watch them on their own time or listen to them as they were driving into work. They could post on the forum anytime, day or night. So if they're in the middle of a night shift, could post there. And they could do the self-study modules or not at home on their own time. That was the final theme that showed up in our data.
Choose your own adventure program.
Yeah.
Okay, so we piloted it. It worked. We are continuing to run Better Together here at CU. We are in our third cohort currently. We decided to open it up to fellows, and we have 117 that volunteered into it. We are not studying them any more than pre-post tests at this point, and we plan to continue to keep whatever we do open to CU residents. We also decided to look at a longitudinal data. So at the 12-month mark, we reached back out to our intervention group who then had not received coaching. They were specifically not offered coaching in the interim, so that we could survey them and see if our results were sustained. And it appears that they are. We just sort of ran preliminary analysis. We're waiting to add to that with the 12-month mark of the control group, who also didn't get coaching in the interim. And so that's still kind of under production, but the emotional exhaustion averages are sustained at least 12 months out. So that's very exciting. We also got a grant from the Division of Hospital Medicine to do a qualitative analysis of the content that came up during the calls and in the written coaching format. So this means transcribing actual coaching, de-identified coaching calls, and using the ask for coaching prompts that came through our website, with a research question of simply, what are residents bringing in a coaching group to prevent burnout? What types of topics do they ask for help with? We think that'll be really helpful for program leadership, institutional leadership, and probably the residents themselves. And then the big next step is that we are planning to scale up this program to a national level. We would like to see if we are able to get the same results across the country, if our results are generalizable. We also want to see if we have additional coaches coaching for us, where is the sky the limit in terms of how many residents we can coach? So we've actually enrolled 20 GME programs across the country with a goal of starting a randomized controlled trial that mirrors what we did here at CU across the country. In order to do this, we recruited 12 very lovely, generous volunteer physician coaches to offer more coaching calls to be able to support that many participants. They're across time zones. We've got coaches in Alaska and coaches in Boston to offer calls, a weekly menu of calls to these residents and fellows across the country. So what that means is we'll recruit everyone together in one big bucket. And then after they take the pre-survey, we will randomize them. And so the intervention group will get coaching from September to March of this year, September of this year, March of next year. And they could be on a group coaching call, like someone from UCLA could be on a group coaching call with someone from Emory, and they're both sort of sharing their struggles together. So we hope that normalization impact is only amplified by seeing women across the country share experiences. We will do the same study, staggered study design, and enroll our coaching arm. This is where we're at right here. We are in the process of recruiting, and stay tuned. Hopefully our results are similar. While we're talking here, and we love this institution, we feel a lot of allegiance to it, and we'd love to see what Better Together could do. One thing Adrienne and I found out this last year was that actually now that the program is built and the curriculum is on there, most of the work is behind us. In fact, it really only takes Adrienne and I about an hour a week, plus or minus some admin time, minimal admin time, to run Better Together as it is now. She does one coaching call a week and I do one coaching call a week, and we're reaching, almost 120 trainees with just us two. So we feel like because we have the platform and because we have the curriculum, we can branch out to other career stage arms, other intersectionalities, perhaps even different specialties in the field of medicine. And we are exploring that within this department now.
This is our research group. I just thought we'd shout out to them here. Group of really incredible women who've helped us in so many ways during this work. That's all we have. The QR code here is a link to the public facing part of our website, so feel free to follow it if you wish to see more about what we're doing, but we'll take any questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. That's really interesting. So while we're waiting for questions through the chat, maybe I can ask you. So, you showed that there was a big change in the emotional exhaustion score. I mean, what would be a clinically significant change in that score? And, how, for someone who doesn't know the literature, what does that mean, that magnitude of change?
Yeah, it sort of depends on what you mean by clinically significant. In general, the MBI facets are broken up into, mild burnout, moderate burnout, severe burnout. And so we actually did cross the line, or high burnout. We did cross the line from high into moderate, and most people consider that clinically significant. There are various cutoffs for in terms of outcomes, what is clinically significant, but we were really looking at resident studies in the past. We were expecting something like, it would be great if we moved it even 1 point, just because it's so tough to do in a small time frame with a small number of residents. So to us, this matters a lot. That's also kind of why we did the qualitative analysis, to explore, okay, your scores are better. Does this really mean anything for your lives? And what we found out is that yes, it does. We didn't reach significance in the other two domains. We trended towards it in both, also in moral injury. But as I said before, we weren't really powered to find a difference. So hopefully we will in the fall.
Yeah, oh, that's great. And then is there, a minimum amount of engagement that the residents have to do, you feel, to get benefit from, or what's, or is there like a dose response?
We think there probably is. And in our next round, we're going to have a more robust way of measuring interaction with the website and interaction with the videos. But there were people who never came live to a call, who we never saw, who participated in interviews and who described the impact that the program had. So we're not sure yet in what ways that dose response might be present, but we suspect it is.
Everyone gets an email, but who knows if they read, but lots of the residents would come up to me and say, I didn't engage in the program at all. I'm so sorry, but just getting that email where we introduced topics of the week, like imposter syndrome, was a huge benefit. Adrian and I are pretty we use ourselves as an example a lot in those emails. And they say, just seeing you two women physician leaders be that vulnerable has been highly impactful, even if they never came on to get coaching. So who knows, it may just be that it exists.
Oh, that's interesting. And then did it seemed like there was a delayed start for one intervention group. And it looks like they didn't change. So that's really interesting, the fact that they got emails that led to an improvement in scores.
Yeah. Dr. Ho, I see some questions in the Q&A. I'm happy to tackle those.
Oh yeah, sorry. I didn't see any, but yeah, if you want to tackle them.
So Dr. Flores is asking if this is based on Dr. Rick McGee's work at Northwestern, designed to help retain graduate students. This isn't based on that, but I will look at his work. Thank you for telling us about it.
We specifically, though, don't have, just looking at the prompt, the coaching here has zero agenda. We were curious about burnout, but we certainly, our coaching was very open-ended, and we didn't have no advice giving or even resource giving was a part of our intervention.
Dr. Onia, yes, thanks. Are there easily learned components of your program that teachers and mentors should be utilizing in interactions with residents and fellows? Absolutely, yes. And contact us and we're happy to arrange a time where we can teach some of these tools to your group. Dr. Anstedt, hi, this is such a powerful work. Thanks. I'm curious if you encountered any mental health issues and what your process was for referring if there were concerning comments, et cetera. Tyra, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so we're pretty clear up front that, like I said in the beginning, we are not therapists. We also are doctors, but we are not their doctors, and we're really clear about that. If we have a consent form that goes over this, and we've cleared language with our IRB. But basically, if anything concerns Adrienne or I as coaches in terms of participant safety, what we do is access the GME program's specific mental health resources, and they sort of each have their own pipeline. So we have a boots on the ground person for that. We also plan to replicate that at each site. So we have a site champion at each site that we are partnering with next year, just in case that should happen. What I will say is actually in now 3 cohorts of doing this work, we have never had a concern about a participant safety or an undiagnosed mental health concern. We coach a lot on people who do have anxiety and depression. We coach about their thoughts about their anxiety and depression. We do not treat their anxiety or depression. So they may bring to us and say, hey, I just got this diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, and how am I supposed to be a resident when I have this diagnosis? And we look at their thoughts about the diagnosis. If it seems that they're struggling clinically, then we would reach out to their corresponding GME program for help.
And that's part of their consent to participate in the program, is acknowledgement that that would happen if we thought they were in struggle. Dr. Patel asked a very important question. Thank you for this question. She says, you mentioned demographics of the qualitative part of your study for the multi-center randomized control trial. Can you expand on your efforts to recruit a diverse group of trainees, and will your coaches represent this diversity too? Yes, thank you for the question. We have recruited an amazing and diverse group of coaches, which you can see on our website on the Our Team page. And I'll have Tyra speak to the diversity of the participants we're going to serve in the next round.
Yeah, we chose our programs based on where we thought we could reach a more representative group of participants. And so we intentionally reached out to geographic areas that support that. And hopefully we will be able to recruit that. You know, recruitment's completely voluntary. And so there isn't a great way to say, okay, we need X amount of, Black identifying women and X amount of Latinx identifying women. We're hopeful that with program recruitment in these areas, we will reach those vulnerable groups and sort of have come at it that way. We're also hopeful that with recruiting a super diverse group of coaches, that representation will increase. Our demographics here at CU are actually exactly representative of the GME demographics as a whole. So it doesn't appear that we were biased necessarily towards white trainees, although that is the majority of what we have here at CU. So we're very hopeful that with this next step, we will get more generalizable data.
Excellent. Dr. Montague, I see your question. How did you address changes in burnout due to the evolution of the pandemic and the evaluation? Thanks. Aside from it being randomized, and you're right, the control group's experience was 6 months later in the pandemic than the intervention group was, and we didn't have a way to control for that.
But the study was just during it. So the actual study stopped before we coached the control group. And so the results you're looking at are completely all part of the randomized control trial. So that controlled for that in and of itself. The control group would have also experienced the same changes that the intervention group did. Just also why we're excited that we did that study design.
So it shows that from January through June of 2021, burnout got a lot worse in people who didn't receive the intervention. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Dr. Flores, for the link. We'll follow it up. Thank you so much for your questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dr. Mann and Dr. Panstedt. That was really interesting and obviously generated a lot of discussion and interest. So I wanted to thank Dr. Mann and Dr. Panstedt for really interesting talks, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their afternoon. Thank you so much
for having us.
Thanks for having us.